I got you.
That
I got you,
thing.
bro. I got you, bro.
You got it. You got it.
Okay, ready? Can you say something real quick? Today we're going to talk about shame and maybe guilt. I'm Keith.
I'm Rodney, and this is the Daily Chronicle, and this is where we take note of our days, our weeks, our process, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're doing it for ourselves so we can look back at our younger selves and say, you were a go-getter, or you really messed up. And saving it for our daughters so that they can hopefully expedite their process to greatness and doing amazing things to make the world amazing. And then to start a community with you so we can learn from you, people who've already done the stuff that we're talking about. We can give some insight to people that are doing it along with us and maybe people who are interested. So, today we're going to talk about guilt. Guilt, and actually, we are going to talk about shame because.
I said shame and then maybe guilt.
So we're definitely gonna talk about shame, but I don't think I'm not gonna separate it from guilt. So
fair enough.
I am gonna separate it, but I'm gonna talk about them both. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So in Brene Brown's last book, Dare to Lead, she said that guilt, and she says this a lot. If you follow Brene Brown, if you don't, it'll be your first time. Guilt can be a useful emotion. Like guilt can propel us into like taking ownership of I messed this up and this thing is wrong because of my action or inaction or thoughts or whatever. And then shame is a highly useless emotion. Shame being I did wrong, so I am wrong. Like I, as a being, as a person, at my core, I am wrong because I did wrong. And I got a very close relationship with shame personally, and I can attest to that being a rubbish emotion. But Keith, what do you think before I go further?
Yeah, the thing I often get pulled back to is Dolly Chugh, and how she talks about it with Reid Hoffman is that shaming is actually unproductive in the vast majority. Some people can channel shame. I mean, I've had a bad relationship with shame, but there have been moments of shame that I still remember that have changed my behavior. Have they made me better? No, they've changed a very specific behavior that didn't necessarily project out to a broader thing. But shaming generally doesn't help anybody because all you're doing is making someone think that they're a bad person, and they are going to find a way to prove to themselves that they're not a bad person, not to you, and they likely won't do it in the way that you're hoping them to.
Yeah, I mean, I have used shame positively, but it often it can be used positively. I think there's a problem in that it's kind of a self-perpetuating cycle. Like I keep using it, like, oh, I'm messed up. I gotta do better. And then like, but if that's your fuel, it's not an efficient fuel is the problem. And while you're doing better or achieving more, you're eroding your self-image, your self-confidence. And there comes a point where there's nothing left to eat at. And then that causes its own mess of issues for different individuals. If you can stop it and just say like I'm not going to continue on this path of I'm wrong, I did wrong, or others are telling me I'm wrong, so I'm bad, then shame could be useful, I suppose. But that just hasn't been my experience with it.
And generally speaking, it's not the experience of most people. And I think the reason we bring it up now is because there is a lot of shame that is due to everything that's going on around police violence and systemic racism across all institutions against Black people. There are a lot of people out there who are feeling shame and acting as a result, which is great, but that action is not sustainable. And the action needs to be sustainable if change is actually going to happen. And so we think about it from an organizational standpoint and other things that we're trying to implement. Like we need to have a mindset of action for long-term impact, and shame can get in the way of that. So we need to find some grace with ourselves. We need to understand, we talked yesterday about meeting people where they are in conversations. Like, we need to understand that, like, you are where you are, right? And whatever that is, just go forward and make sure we're positive, give ourselves some forgiveness, because that shame can ultimately lead to something that none of us want, and that is status quo, because it's hard to manage and hard to deal with shame.
Well, and that's the problem with shame, is there will be a point, and for some people, there's a point where it will cause outward action. For a lot of people, it causes us to shrink and go inside and then hide, because I'm bad. I don't want anybody to see that I'm bad. I just want you to see my good stuff. So in the Instagram era, in the LinkedIn era, my dog barking. Oh, come here, baby. This is
we'll get through this. We'll get through this together.
Hey, guys. Hey, it's really okay. Just walking by. He's just walking by. Oh, no, not over. Yeah.
We can edit this out.
So here's what we're gonna do. So in the Instagram era, in the LinkedIn era of curating our wins, which is what we do and what I do. I'm not calling anybody else out. It's just it is largely human nature, and then different personalities do that more. But in that era, like, oh, I can't show my failures, any of them, at any degree. So if I'm wrong, I gotta shrink away, which will, it's, you know, there's going to be an emotional fatigue that comes from this shame. So love is truly the answer. Like, you really need to find a way to love yourself, to forgive yourself, to have some grace, as Keith just said, and start with, I did wrong, or I was not in the know, I was willfully ignorant, I was ignorant, I was whatever. Be honest about it, but that doesn't mean that I'm wrong. Like, I exist as I am, and I am okay, and I can love myself. Start there, then you can honestly address the next layer, which is guilt. And that's what you did or didn't do. And now you can address that without the continual emotional fatigue of like, oh God, I'm such an F up. Like, I'm a piece of shit. Like, you got it. It will, like, everybody's like, action, action, action. People are going to run themselves into a wall. And I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just sharing what I know about shame.
You have a good understanding of shame due to your relationship with it in your life, which is, this is not coming from deep psychological PhD study. It's coming from personal experience. So, and Brene Brown. So how do you process shame?